You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter @RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to my New York Islanders Trade Deadline recap show, where I will give the Islanders a grade on everything that they did at the trade deadline. That includes rumors, that includes call-ups and send-downs, that includes extensions, you name it. Before I get into the Islanders, though, I do just want to say that I know more details have broke on some NHL trades. Eric Gustafsson, we know the return there, and the return on the Vatanen trade has been clarified. So, look, I'm not going to repost the show. Alright, it's done, it's up there, I'm not going to repost it. I felt like I had to get it up there, and I did. You know, I did this for the NBA Trade Deadline. I did a recap the day after of some of the finer points of trades that I missed or just came out later. And look, it's tough when you're doing a trade deadline show and, you know, you're not doing it live. You know, if I had a set end to this show, you know, it has to be up by 5 or 6. I mean, it doesn't have to be up by 6 every afternoon, so it has to be 6. Yeah, I probably could have waited, but I really wanted to get my Peugeot reaction up. I wanted to talk about David Ayers. I wanted to talk about Chris Kreider, a bunch of other stuff, so the show is up now. If you want to listen to it, you can. I'll go through some of the stuff that I missed tomorrow, and on to the Islanders. The reason that I wanted to do this show was twofold. One, I wanted another outlet to scream at Lou Lamoriello. When I announced this show, the Islanders had done nothing. Every team around them had gotten better. And it looked like the Islanders were going to slip out of the playoff race because of it. But then they traded for Andy Green. They traded for Peugeot today and just re-signed him. So, look, I couldn't cancel the show because, A, I promised it to you, and B, this is the second reason that I alluded to earlier, I wanted a central place to talk about the Islanders in the lead up to the deadline. You know, my Islanders stuff had been kind of scattered around a bunch of podcasts, and I wanted a central show to talk about it. So, that's why I'm doing this show. The grade will come at the end, but I do want to preface it with what the Islanders did. Now, leading up to the Andy Green trade, everyone was killing Lamoriello. There were even some Lamoriello supporters that were criticizing him for not doing anything. Finally, he does something. He trades for Andy Green. He overpaid for Green. There's no question. There's no question that he's not worth a second-round pick. He's worth a fourth, maybe a third. Not a second. But they had to do it. They needed a defenseman with Pelech being out. Noah Dobson stinks. Can he get better? Yeah, it's certainly possible, but I'm skeptical. and Lamoriello got a familiar face in green. But the reaction among Islanders fans was either bad trade or good trade, but we want more. And I fell in the latter camp. I wanted more. I knew that the Islanders needed another defenseman. No question about that. But their primary need was scoring. And as the deadline drew closer, it seemed like Lamoriello wasn't going to do anything. Then, at about 9:30, 10 o'clock this morning, the news breaks that the Islanders traded for J.G. Pageau. If he did not trade for Pageau, this guy may have been worse than Milbury. And I'm going to tell you why. I said this before, but I'll say it again to put a finer point on it. Mike Milbury at least tried. He was a terrible judge of talent, but he at least tried to make big trades. Lamoriello had done nothing. What, Andy Green, that was it? No, adding Pageau changes things. Pageau is exactly what the Islanders needed. If you were to write down on a piece of paper what the Islanders needed, it'd look a lot like J.G. Pageau. A third liner who can score, but is sound defensively and can play on the penalty kill and maybe the power play. That's Pageau. That's the literal definition of Jean-Gabriel Pageau. Was it a lot to give up for him? Well, I don't know about that. Realize, they signed him to an extension. 6 years, $30 million. Now that's an overpay for a third-line center, there's no question. And the Islanders are in a little bit of cap hell now. Because they've got to re-sign 3 or 4 players. Barzal, Pulock, Taves, and Greiss. Now, if they let Greiss walk, that's not the end of the world. I think they want Varlamov to play 55, 60 games. They don't want another rotating thing. Lamoriello gave Varlamov a big contract, and he should start earning it. Barzal, for obvious reasons, they need to pay. They got to keep him around long term. Pulock and Taves are really good defensemen for the Islanders. For a team that is built on defense, you've got to keep those guys around. Pulock and Taves have been really good players since Barry Trotz got here. Before Trotz, they weren't very good. Now, they are integral parts of the Islanders' future. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens at the draft. As it stands right now, they have a little over $11 million in cap space next year. So, there are going to need to be some guys moved. I'm sure Lamoriello would love to move Andrew Ladd. I'll get into that in a minute further, but Hickey could go. Boychuk maybe, Leddy maybe, Cizikas, Clutterbuck, Komarov. Any one of those guys could go. The Islanders do need to create some money. Not a lot, but some. And it's going to be interesting to see how they do it. You know, there was no bigger Lamoriello critic than me, but I gotta say, he has shut me up until the draft. He did everything I wanted him to do. He addressed the defense, and he addressed their lack of scoring. Ultimately, I can't complain about anything that the Islanders did. I don't care that they overpaid. They're in win-now mode. Teams that are in win now mode don't care about the future. They care about the now. And the Islanders, before these trades, before the Pajot trade, looked like a team that was going to be eliminated in the first round. I don't care how they looked against the Red Wings and Sharks. You know what? Those aren't the teams that they need to worry about. They need to worry about actually good teams. Now, they're set up as well as they possibly could be for the playoffs. Are they better than teams like the Capitals, the Penguins, the Flyers, the Hurricanes, teams like that? No. Probably not. But once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. And I think the Islanders did a good enough job of addressing their needs that ultimately it's up to the players and Trotz to execute. It's up to Trotz to put together a system that will result in the Islanders winning, and it's up to the players to execute it. Now, this doesn't mean I'm going to relent on Lamoriello criticism. If he does nothing come June and July, and the Islanders are ousted in the first round, yeah, I'm going to criticize him. But as it stands right now, he's earned a reprieve from my criticism. And I'll tell you, I would have been eating my words if he had swung the Zach Parise trade. Could you imagine Zach Parise on the Islanders? Holy cannoli. Look, I understand that Parise isn't the player of old, but he's still putting together a decent year in Minnesota. I'll pull up his stats right now. They're really not that bad. 37 points in 61 games. He already has 20 goals. For a team that needed scoring, Parise made a ton of sense. Yeah, he's old. Yeah, he's overpaid. You know what? You'll worry about that later. The stuff about the Islanders fans worrying about the quick fix are the same Islanders fans that were criticizing this team for not being good. You know, you can't have it both ways. You can't criticize the team for being bad and then criticize the trade that will help them get better. Now, if this trade doesn't work out, if Pajot does not work out, yeah, fireable offense for Lamoriello. But I really think it's going to work out. And Parise would have been a perfect complement to Pajot. God only knows who their third-line left winger is going to be. It's going to be interesting to see how their lines look now. Lee, Barzell, Eberle, Beauvillier, Nelson, Bailey, Brassard, Pajot, Komarov. I think Brassard is going to play tomorrow. And Martin, Koivula, Clutterbuck. That's fine. I really have no complaints about that. And their defense is Pulock, Green, Mayfield, Taves, Boychuk, Leddy. Fine. Varlamov and Greiss? Fine. This isn't a great Islanders team, but it's certainly not a bad one. It's certainly better than it was 24 hours ago. And it's certainly better than it was a month ago. I gotta give Lamoriello credit for that. At the end of the day, did he get a great defenseman or one of the better defensemen available? No. But he got a solid player. I like Andy Green, actually. He's played really well since coming here. But the thing that you gotta like is that Lamoriello got one of the better forwards available. There was no superstar that was traded this deadline. Pajot is as good as any forward that was traded. He's a really good two-way player. He's going to fit in great on that third line, great on that penalty kill. I think he's going to be really good for the Islanders in the playoffs. He was good for the Senators in the playoffs. Why can't he be good for the Islanders? It's a little risky to sign him now to that big of an extension, but at the same time, if he played really well, he may have wanted more money. And $5 million is a lot as it is. So, hey, I really can't hate it. But back to Parise. Parise would have fit in perfectly on that third line left wing. That's been a dark hole all year. DeCall stinks. Bellows. I like Bellows. I actually think Bellows is going to be a really good player in this league for a long time. But he's making a lot of mistakes. It's the kind of thing that I'd like to see him up here working on. But I understand that if you're a team pushing for the playoffs, you really don't have that luxury. So it makes sense to send him down. Hopefully he irons out the kinks and we see him up here next year full time. Johnston is just a goon. He's better off on the fourth line. And Kuhnhackl stinks. Parise would have been great. Again, is he the Parise of old? No. But Parise, Pajot, and Brassard is a lethal third line. And getting rid of Ladd is just an added bonus. Having said that, though, that is a complicated deal to pull off. It's the kind of deal that's probably more likely to happen at the draft when you're not dealing with a deadline. It'll be interesting to see what retained salary there is, if any. But ultimately, Parise for Ladd, I doubt that would be straight up, but depending on what else the Wild would want, it would have been a great trade for the Islanders. And it really, really would have shut me up. The final piece to this puzzle is the moves that the Islanders made concerning players that they had in their system 24 hours ago. Cal Clutterbuck is back up, as is Andrew Ladd, and Kiefer Bellows and Otto Koivula were sent down. Bellows will be in Bridgeport for the rest of the year. Koivula will be called back up, which makes sense because they needed another center until Cizikas got healthy. The lines that I mentioned before are what I would roll out tomorrow, and I think that's a team that can make a good playoff run. I don't think a great playoff run, but a good one. Once you get in the playoffs, a million things can happen. I didn't think they were going to beat the Penguins in the first round last year. So, that was just gravy to me. Last year was gravy. This year, they've got to at least make the second round and win a game. Show progress. Alright, now it's time for the moment you've all been waiting for. My overall grade on what the Islanders did at this deadline, taking everything into account that I just talked about. I'm going to give them a, drumroll please, I'm going to give them a B. A solid B. B as in Bravo. I can't give them a B plus just because there were better defensemen traded than Andy Green, and I'd have loved them to have pulled off that Parise trade. I don't think that they got as good as they could have, but a B minus seems too mean because they did improve their roster a lot. Green and Pajot are good, not great. Pajot is really good. I think that a B is very fair. And this is a team that can definitely, at the very least, win a game in the second round. That is the bare minimum of what I will consider a successful season this year. The Jacob Valk Show, as per usual, tomorrow, I'm going to be going over some things that happened at the NHL Trade Deadline that I missed. Hope you enjoyed this New York Islanders show. Hope you enjoyed all 3 shows today. It was certainly a lot of work, but I love doing this, and I really, really hope that you enjoyed it too. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that playing at Candlestick Park was like playing a game on an aircraft carrier in the North Atlantic.